Excerpt. Now, therefore, I, Abraham Lincoln, President of the United States, by virtue of the power in me vested as Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy of the United States in the actual armed rebellion against the authority and government of the United States, and as a fit and necessary war measure for suppressing said rebellion due on this first day of January in the year of our Lord, 1863, and in accordance with my purpose, so to do publicly proclaim for the full period of 100 days, from the day first above mentioned, order and designate as the states and parts of states wherein the people thereof respectively are this day in rebellion against the United States. The following to wit: Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia, and which accepted parts are, for the present, left precisely as if this proclamation were not issued. And by virtue of the power and for the purpose aforesaid, I do order and proclaim that all persons held as slaves within said designated states and parts of states are, and henceforth shall be free, and that the executive government of the United States, including the military and naval authorities thereof, will recognize and maintain the freedom of said persons. And I hereby enjoin upon the people so declared to be free to abstain from all violence, unless in necessary self-defense. And I recommend to them that in all cases where allowed, their labor be faithfully for reasonable wages. The proclamation, the Emancipation Proclamation. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Good evening, brothers and sisters. We come to you on a most joyous day, June 19th, 2020, aka Juneteenth, aka Freedom Day, aka Liberation Day, aka Jubilation Day. This is a holiday, an American holiday based on Americans of African descent that we celebrate. It's that very day that indicates our freedom here in America. Although there are definitely some funny things going on as to how that happened, this particular day, back in 1865, marked the official demarcation of the ending of slavery. And that in itself is a day to rejoice, a day to get together with those brothers and sisters that were in bondage, those that escaped bondage, those who suffered from bondage. because the very next year they decided to celebrate that, wearing amazing pimped out clothes, gathering as a family to do what we can as people start to rebuild their broken lives in the hope of some life here in America. So, courtesy of Caffe, Lena, and MLK Saratoga, we bring to you the Juneteenth Legacy, not only to talk about what we should celebrate, but to continue to emphasize the through line from that demarcation of 1865 to June 19th, 2020. We are here to present that, and I'm just going to make my reference to my notes. A theatrical performance, courtesy, in collaboration, of course, with the Black Theater Troupe of Upstate New York, also the Creative Action Unlimited Theater Group, and my name is Garland Nelson, your Soulist, entertainer in the Capital Region. So we want all of you to open up your hearts, open up your minds. If you are woke, stay woke. Or if you are recently woke, we would like to do everything that we can to help you stay that way, and us talking about the legacy of Juneteenth. If you are sitting at home, watching on your phones, watching on your laptop, this is that opportunity for you to stand up where you are. Please stand up as we sing, what we call the African American National Anthem together. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoices rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling seas. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory. Is one?
On June 19, 1865, Union soldiers led by Major General Gordon Granger landed in Galveston, Texas, with news that the war had ended and that the enslaved were now free.
Note that this was 2.5 years after President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, which had little impact on Texans because there weren't enough Union troops there to enforce it. However, with the surrender of General Lee and the arrival of General Granger's regiment, the forces were finally strong enough to overcome the resistance.
Later attempts to explain the 2.5-year delay have yielded several versions.
President Lincoln's authority over the rebellious states was in question.
The messenger was murdered on his way to Texas with the news of freedom.
And the news was deliberately withheld by the enslavers to maintain labor forces on the plantation.
Federal troops actually waited for the slave owners to reap the benefits of one last cotton harvest before going to Texas to enforce the Emancipation Proclamation.
Whatever the reasons, conditions in Texas remain status quo, well beyond what was legal.
Still, there was profound reason for celebration.
Because before this date in 1865, this was the life of Black people in America.
Captain William Miller of the Black Prince arriving on the West African coast, June 1762. At 3 a.m., the longboat came on board with 17 gang casks of water and some traders with 2 men slaves. My black, called John Prince, gave an impertinent answer to Mr. Thomas, third mate, for which I'm giving him correction. Put him in irons and slapped him down on the quarterdeck, put him on bread and water, a prisoner's fare, until he knows better.
I told him I'd run away soon as I can.
Sailed down along the coast, found no trade except old slaves or children.
I hope you don't find no more of us.
Purchased 4 slaves.
We say sickness is better than the belly of this ship, that we'd rather it sail on an empty stomach, and if we don't die, there's a chance we fight, tear apart this beast from the inside.
Found the slaves was intending to rise. A great number of them broke their irons. Found out 2 of which were the ringleaders, had them flogged. They best know how we'll sail from here on, all 438 of them.
There is nothing but sea all around us. Every night we call out to Guinea. We are the sea on this ship, and we are prepared to drown it all.
The slaves intended to make another uprising attempt. Got 10 of the ringleaders, put them in 1 chain, and beat them.
If we cannot fight them, then we will throw our bodies into the sea. We will deprive our bodies of all food, and this ship will stink of incessant vomit.
1 woman is very bad. Woman number 11 died, girl number 12, and the leader of the insurrection. 1 sick slave endeavored to jump overboard.
And we all will follow suit. We all will follow suit. We all will follow suit.
Many of the slaves will not eat bread, beef, rice, nor beans. We must pry their mouths open and force the food down. Any who fight this, we put on thumb screws.
Even our right to die they force away from us. We attempt to die quickly, but for some of us, death will not look us in our eyes.
It has been 57 days since we left the coast.
Today they wash our bodies for the first time since we have been stolen from our land. But no amount of water can scrub this misery from our skin.
We arrived May 7th with 394 of the original 438 slaves still alive. I will be sailing the Black Prince back for more.
We were many days in the merchant's custody before we were sold.
On a given signal, the buyers rush at once into the yard where the slaves are confined and choose which parcel they like best.
The noise and the eagerness in the faces of the buyers increased the apprehensions of the terrified Africans, who believe the buyers are the ministers of their destruction.
Relations and friends are separated. Most never see each other again.
Might not an African ask you, learned you this from your God, who says to you, do unto all men as men should do unto you?
Is it not enough that we are torn from our country and friends to toil for your luxury and lust for gain?
Must every tender feeling be likewise sacrificed to your greed?
Are the dearest of friends and relations now rendered more dear by separation from kindred, still to be parted from one another, and prevented from cheering the gloom of slavery with the small comfort of being together?
Why are parents to lose their children?
Brothers their sisters?
Or husbands their wives?
Surely this is a new refinement in cruelty.
In the early years, many Africans and poor whites worked side by side in fields and were equally punished if they broke their contract. All were indentured servants who could earn their freedom dues, a piece of land and supplies after years of labor. Black-skinned or white, you could become free.
But indentured servants, once freed, began to pose a threat to the property-owning elite. Servants moved on, forcing a need for costly replacements. But slaves?
Slaves,
Especially ones you could identify by skin color.
could not move on.
Could not become free competitors.
But
What if status was determined not by,
changeable,
religious faith,
but by
unchangeable?
skin color.
So in 1705, the Virginia General Assembly made a declaration that would seal the fate of African Americans for generations to come.
all servants imported and brought into the country who were not Christians in their native country shall be accounted and be slaves. All Negro, mulatto, and Indian slaves shall be held to be real estate.
If any slave resist his master correcting such slave, and shall happen to be killed in such correction, the master shall be free of all punishment, as if such an accident never happened.
Slaves needed written permission to leave their plantation.
Those found guilty of murder and rape were hanged.
For any other major offenses, the slave received 60 lashes and was placed in stocks where his or her ears were to be cut off.
For minor offenses, such as associating with whites, slaves were whipped, branded, or maimed.
A slave owner could now break the most rebellious of slaves, knowing any punishment inflicted,
Including death.
Would not result in the slightest reprimand.
These slavers knew at one level that these were,
Human beings.
because they were.
Actually, obviously, clearly human beings.
At the same time, they were objects of profit.
and those two concepts couldn't be reconciled.
Were never reconciled.
It was just their sense of humanity was repressed.
For the sake of gold.
The shocking thing is that human beings are able indefinitely
And we're talking about centuries.
to suppress the urges of their common humanity
To call slavery something else or deny it
for the sake of making profits.
Traditionally, a child inherited the slavery status of their father.
If your father was free, you were free.
In Virginia, it was decided that children would inherit the status of their mother.
So the mulatto child of the black servant woman inherited her unfree status.
And every white slave master
Had great motivation.
and legal sanction
To rape,
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 rape
as many black female slaves
as often.
as possible.
On June 19, 1865, General Granger read to the people of Texas General Order Number 3, which began with,
The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with the proclamation from the executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection henceforth existing between them becoming that between employer and hired laborer.
while many lingered to learn more about this employer-employee relationship, many left before the offers were completely off the lips of their former masters, even if they had nowhere to go.
North was the logical destination for many. It represented true freedom, while the desire to reach family members and neighbors in neighboring towns drove some into Louisiana, Arkansas, and Oklahoma.
Settling into these new areas as free men and women brought on new realities and challenges of establishing a previously non-existent status of black people in America.
Ministers saw it. Please read the above in their congregations. Information wanted.
Of Carolyn Dotson, who was sold from Nashville November 1st, 1862 by James Lumsden to Warwick, a trader in human beings, who carried her to Atlanta, Georgia. She was last heard of in the sale pen of Robert Clark, human trader in that place from where she was sold. Any information of her whereabouts will thankfully be received and rewarded by her mother.
Information wanted.
Kansas Lee wishes to learn the whereabouts of her children, 4 girls and 1 boy, who were, when last heard from, living in Baltimore, Maryland. Their names are Annie, Celia, Sarah, Elizabeth, and Adam Lee. My children were owned by the mother of Benjamin King. I live in Raleigh, and I hope they will think enough of their mother to come and look for her, as she is growing old and needs help. As the hand of time steals over me, so now, so rapidly, I wish to see my dear ones once more clasped to their mother's heart, as in days of yore. Come to the capital of North Carolina, and you will find your mother there, eagerly awaiting her loved ones.
Information wanted.
Can anyone inform me of the whereabouts of John Person, son of Hannah Person of Alexandria, Virginia, who belonged to Alexander Sancta? I have not seen him in 10 years. I was sold to Joseph Brune, who took me to New Orleans. I was the only child I have. This is the only child I have, and I desire to find him much.
And 155 years later, the condition of black life is still one of mourning.
Though the white liberal imagination likes to feel temporarily bad about black suffering, there is still no mode of empathy to replicate the daily strain of knowing that as a black man, woman, or child, as a black person, you can be killed for just being black.
No hands in your pockets. No playing music. No sudden movements.
No hoodies. No driving in your car. No walking at night.
No walking in the day. No turning on this street.
No entering this building, no standing your ground.
No standing here. No standing there. No talking back.
No playing with toy guns.
No living while black.
The gun shot. Then the screaming stopped. Silence hung, waiting for protest like strange fruit ripened by the sun. This skin, no matter how you rub, don't wipe off. Hearts bleed on bloodstained sidewalks, crying for sons. We need no tear gas for tears. Let the drops seep through the soil, 6 feet deep where dead bodies keep cold, where justice dies in villainizing victims, victimizing villains. Let our hearts beat 10 times harder for every bullet, 15 times harder for every set of keys, 20 times harder for every cell phone, 41 times for every wallet misidentified, 50 times for every wedding bell unsung, 127 times for the wrong car, wrong place, wrong time. On mornings when morning death is like a nightstick sodomizing our core and dreams haunted by ghosts grip our sleep, and the stink of decaying flesh overwhelms the sweet smell of Skittles on a walk home. On mornings when invisible backpacks send black sons to prison instead of school, without trial or conviction of a crime, or to a solitary confinement cell large enough to park a car but small enough to drive out the health of his mind. When black bodies no longer know the difference between home or prison or coffins. On those mornings, let us rise, strong, courageous, and vigilant, to cowardly vigilantes who haven't settled for our existence. We've Nat Turner our way through history, after being Emmett Till, and still black skin in a hoodie leads to being killed or shot or beaten or imprisoned, like the ring of freedom never rung. Liberty dressed in blood, seeped in the soil, where black bodies keep cold, still screaming, I can't breathe, 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 I can't breathe. If I ever have sons, I will teach them to know their bloodlines before chalk lines ever sketch their bodies. Lay their hands in the wet concrete so the ground can know their touch before it tastes their blood. Let their voices shout louder than shots fired. I will tell them they matter when the system says they don't, until we rise, strong, courageous, and vigilant, to cowardly vigilantes who will never settle for our existence.
We were living in the projects in Humboldt, Tennessee, when 2 white deputy sheriffs come to our house to take my mom to jail. One deputy says, "You're being arrested for writing a bad check at Piggly Wiggly." I think back to my mom coming home in the cab and having my siblings and me come out to help bring in the groceries. I was excited that we had food. Not that there was ever a time when we didn't have at least a pot of brown beans and a pan of cornbread when there was no meat or vegetables in the house. I am stricken with fear that these white men with guns on their hips have entered my home to take the only sense of security I've ever known away from me. Why? Because of a bounced check at Piggly Wiggly? The only supermarket in that small town where blacks can go shop. The place my mother has shopped ever since I was old enough to know what grocery shopping meant. My mother is placed in handcuffs and taken from the house. Taken to the deputies' vehicles with her hands cuffed behind her back in plain view for all of the other poor families in the projects to see. The deputies don't bother to offer any guidance as to what we are to do. Just say, "She'll be held in Gibson County until someone can come bail her out." I am 9 years old. My mother went to jail to feed her children. Did the sheriff's department think a single mother with 7 mouths to feed, living in low-income housing, cleaning houses for rich white people, was just going to steal away in the middle of the night, go on the lam for writing a bad check at the supermarket? Were the handcuffs actually necessary? Did the white owner of the supermarket, who'd known my mother for years, really need to turn the check over to the sheriff's department? The resounding message, not only to my family, but to every family living in the projects that day, was we are all seen as criminals. And regardless of our dedication and allegiance to white establishment, we will never, ever really be trusted or treated as an equal. What am I afraid of? That I'll never have true freedom. Freedom to say, freedom to do, freedom to own and love my blackness, freedom to join, freedom to disengage, freedom to be seen or not be seen, freedom from stereotypes. And what are you afraid of? Bondage, being silenced, not being able to use altruism to mask your greedy, guilty conscience, losing that higher ranking the color of your skin alone affords you.
I have to give you a ticket, she said in an almost apologetic voice. No, you don't, I replied, but only in my head. In fact, you didn't have to stop me, interview me, run my plates, or check my license. She continued in a clearly authoritative voice, this will only take a moment, sir, and then you can be on your way. New words entered my mind at that moment, but they were not words that I could acknowledge for fear that the thought police might also have me on their radar. I continued, but only in my head. Given the nature of the supposed violation and your level of discretionary authority, you, madam, could easily have not stopped me at all. But you did. And so the question that I have, but only in my head, why me? Why here? Why now? The lock between my mind and my mouth begins to feel the pressure, and I struggle not to say in a clear, but we both know what's going on voice. But I don't say anything, not even in my head, and she doesn't say anything either, and so we're stuck there in the moment, me trying to save my ass, and the officer just doing her job. My son, who is 15, that's just a year older than Emmett Till, said to me that he didn't have a problem with the police because he had never had a bad encounter with the police. But he said if he was in a car that had been pulled over by the police, he was scared to death. So I said, well, why? And he said, because that is when people who look like me get hurt.
I can't see why you all are talking all that humdrum talk here in this day and age. Nobody wants to see all that. They want to hear the music. They want to see the song and the dance. They want to see the smiles. Smile, everyone. Show those pearly whites. They want to know the story of how we began. Oh, this story has many parts, and it runs deep. So deep, it's like throwing a quarter into a well, waiting to hear the aftermath, or counting the days down to Christmas through the eyes of a child. Always so deep. You see, I don't know where to begin. And I sure as hell don't know where to end. All I know is the story has so much life and love and loss and abandonment and song and dance and music and blues. Peas and cornbread. Peas and cornbread had a fight. Peas, not cornbread, out of sight. Cornbread said, hey man, that's all right. Beat me on the corner Friday night. So much blues, I can't give it away. Every time I do, it comes back to me different or maybe the same. I don't know, or maybe it has a different little tilt to it. All I know is I fear for us on the story of how we became. The blues has been the blueprint. I was right about what I said before. I don't know where to begin. And I sure as hell don't know where to end. Oh, but you people ain't come to see all that. Look at y'all, dressed in y'all best outfits, making plans before and after the show. Let's do dinner. No, let's do drinks. How long do we have the babysitter for? See, that's much more real to me. It's exciting. It ain't like us up here, we just a bunch of characters that come to life. We move them and whisper promises that you hold on to for an hour or two, take back to dinner parties. But see, at the end of the day, there just ain't no room for us. It's a routine, you see. Pattern. Here, take this man over yonder. Rugged from life and loss. Notice how his head hangs low from it. Or her over there. All full of youth and passion. She hasn't yet embraced all the pain that awaits her. Or her over there with a song in her heart and a pep in her step. She has created a world from what her father and her father's father had to go through. Her life, though, is if you keep your head down low enough, it's a lot easier to get by. Or her. The saddest of them all. A mother forever in mourning. A mother who've had to say a long goodbye to her child. Who's had her child ripped from her arms by a stray bullet. Here, if you look close enough, you can still see a chalk line that fit a small body. Have you ever had something so precious taken from you? Stolen from you? It almost breaks your heart. You see, something happens up here. It's big and it's loud, and then we come to life. We give up the praise. We show you our smiles. We show you our cries. And then just like the night before, we go back to the darkness, back to where it all began. Because at the end of the day, that's all black folk got. Story of how we came has been told time and time again, but it must be told for the audience to bear witness to it. You've seen us in chains. You've seen us with needles in our arm, ropes around our neck, dogs at our feet, bullets in our back. You've seen us painted with murals on walls. You've seen us with knees in our neck. You've seen us get shot in our rooms. You've seen us get shot in parks, in playgrounds, in stores, in cars. That is who we are. That is what you made us. We're song, we're music, we're dances, we're smiles. You preach, you march, you scream, you rally. But at the end of the day, we're back in the darkness. So, ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Remember this, when the world gets too dark and gets too grim and you just can't take it and it gets you down, come where we live to serve. Entertain. Come where we dance and cry and smile and laugh and sing. Where we give up the praise. And remember, smile, everyone. Peas and cornbread. Peas and cornbread had a fight. Peas, not cornbread, out of sight. Cornbread said, hey man, that's all right. Meet me on the corner Friday night.
You know, I've been trying not to be an angry black woman. Make sure I smile a little in public. Seems like the understanding is that our facial expressions do not lend to other emotions, so the fear is we stay ready to start a commotion just because. Like, there are no reasons to be black, a woman, and angry at the same time. So don't you know, on most days I turn my smile into a protest. The rest is a crooked upwards battle. I've been trying to rise like Maya's dust every time there's some bitter, twisted lies. Been trying to be black girl magic without a spell to conjure over this hurt, this pain, this rolled up thunder pressed between my ears. I've been trying to sew invisibility cloaks to drape around my children for protection. Only find out they invisible already, without protection. Been trying to tell my daughters to not be angry, that sass might get you sassed, that kissing the pavement ain't better than going home. They will say, you had too much attitude. Refuse to see your smile pressing through from behind your teeth, the world on your shoulders like the mule you are. They will wonder how you made it anyhow. How somehow they haven't killed you yet, being angry. But ain't that the point? Harriet Tubman had to be an angry black woman. That Sojourner Truth had to be an angry black woman. That Assata Shakur had to be an angry black woman. That Rosa Parks had to be an angry black woman. That Shirley Chisholm had to be an angry black woman. That Ida B. Wells had to be an angry black woman. That Fannie Lou Hamer had to be an angry black woman. That Coretta Scott King had to be an angry black woman. That Betty Shabazz had to be an angry black woman. And ain't that the point? That I have every right to be angry. Angry about our trees cut down and the roots left there naked in the sun. About history being his story one too many times. About the corrections to my language when my tongue was already cut out. About gentrification, about discrimination, about appropriation of my culture. About bullets spraying like a carnival game on victims with no weapons. About being called everything but my name. Mammy, Jezebel, ratchet, bitch, about the prison industrial complex, about this reflection someone put in a mirror that ain't my own. I have every right to break the glass. This anger ain't yours to police, ain't yours to cage up like a bird, ain't yours is the point. I've been trying not to be an angry black woman. Truth is, I ain't trying no more. And you're gonna be glad one day. I said you're gonna be glad one day I was angry enough to change the world.
White Fragility 2020. In 2020, the majority race in the United States, white people, are either racists, friends with racists, related to racists, or witness to acts of racism in the news, in the streets, or elsewhere in their lives. And every day that goes by where members of the 60% population do nothing about it is another day of saying okay for the oppression and abuse of black people to continue. So if white people aren't okay with it, why is it that so many stay silent? Is it because rooted in white fragility is the deep-seated fear of change to a world that they will no longer recognize? I don't know. But what I do know, based off of my own personal experiences, is that in order to protect what is, white people have developed the White Fragility Defense Mechanism Handbook. And here are a few excerpts from it. Excerpt 1. I don't see color. 4 small words form the single most harmful sentence to black people in conversation with white people on the very real issues of abuse, racism, and systematic oppression that black people face daily. And before you label me as dramatic, what other color is there? There are no purple people, no green people, there are no teal people. I don't see color precisely crafted to say, I don't see your culture, I don't see your face, I don't see your bruises, I don't see your race, without being so mean. Excerpt 2. Why does it always have to be about race? Why do you always have to make this about race? These questions loosely translate to, I don't like the topic of police brutality. Cops are good people. They've always been kind to my family and me, or I have law enforcement in my family, and then that person should comply, and we don't know what happened before and after the tapes. But by asking a question, your white fragility saves your racism for another day. Excerpt 4. You're racist. There goes the enemy column again. Never mind the fact that racism is an entire structured system of oppression, and it is thoroughly impossible for victims of said structure to also be the harbingers of it. But white people are counting on no one having the balls enough to follow that harebrained logic and call them out on it. Excerpt 5. My last excerpt for the evening. What privilege! What privilege? This is the one where white people talk about their struggles, their discrimination experiences, and how they have worked hard for everything they have, and how no one ever gave them any handouts. Black neighborhoods have been deliberately burned to the ground. Lynching and terrorism forced black families to flee to urban squalor. Segregation, redlining, and predatory lending have stripped black generations of land, money, education, and opportunity to this very day. While schools are still desegregating as of 2017 and 2018. Black people make up 13.4% of the U.S. population, yet 38.6% of the prison population. Black economic status and home ownership have changed since the 1970s, and you truly think it's because black people haven't worked hard enough for it and that you're not privileged? America is built on 253 years and counting of the dehumanization of black people. Privilege doesn't mean that you don't have your own struggles. It just means that your skin color isn't one of them.
Legacy. Legacy is what this is all about. We give a big shout out to Creative Action Unlimited for their Juneteenth celebration through the legacy of the why we need to celebrate Juneteenth. What went into the release? What went into the liberation? What went into the freedom? That's what this is about. Let's take an opportunity to pause real quick to give, as we say, pay some bills. So big shout out, of course, to our unbelievable staff here at Caffe, Lena, America's oldest operating musical live venue coffee house and counting here in Saratoga Springs. Also give a big shout out, of course, to MLKSaratoga.org, local organization doing godly things to help further causes that affect people of color, as well as they continue with trying to figure out registration, voting rights, working in concert with other coalition groups to bring about change in our community. My name is Garland Nelson, your Soulist, and it's been my honor, of course, to host this Juneteenth Legacy, a work in progress celebration. Coming up next, we have another theatrical group that will do its thing, but I'm going to pause you and also to let you know that we're artists. And if you see on your screen, whether it's on your phone, laptop, or tablet, please, you see there's a virtual tip jar. If you feel inclined to donate to our unbelievable professional artists here tonight, tonight's show, please be so, do that. All the information's on the screen right now. Juneteenth. Now that we have a general understanding of the why and that through line going back to the first enslavement here in this country, development straight through to 2020. We also have to talk about why, in light of the shared legacy experience, since 1866, white people decided to gather to actually celebrate, to get together, former slaves proclaiming their freedom in mass gatherings, dressed up to the nines. It's just crazy. Getting together to talk about the past, hope for the future, and recognition of the long road ahead. And to put this in the timeline, because it's always important to think about this insofar as context. Context is everything. After these slaves were freed and they went what we call the Great Scatter, they left Texas and other southern states and they went to other parts of the Union to get free. Oklahoma, out in the area of the North, Virginia. We know exactly that this was the new hope legacy coming up as we figured out the most important thing that needed to happen with those free slaves. They needed to be educated. They needed to come up with the language, with the freedom in order to survive in America. And in Juneteenth, gathering within the Black church group, which was center to so many different enclaves throughout the Union, that we got together, we drank our red soda water. We did all of these things to celebrate each other, to lift each other up, in spite of the fact that groups that morphed from slave patrols to the KKK, or going from enslavement to legislation that actively discriminated against Black people. In spite of all of these things, lynching, terrorism, violence, rape, murders, death, they still got together to celebrate each other in spite of. Some of them seeking out family members that were separated during slavery. But as you started to move through Reconstruction, you started to see stuff like Black men being elected to the U.S. Senate. People started becoming part of the local governments. That was, of course, until discriminatory laws, such as Black codes, later with separate but equal, kind of put a halt to that, made things complicated. But I come to you as a musician. So one particular era that always kind of stops me in my tracks is the Reconstruction era and what was happening with music at that time. And one of the things people do when they get together for Juneteenth, in addition to getting their party on, is that they sing some songs that may harken back to a time where we turned the blues into our strength. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. I looked over Jordan and what did I see? Coming for to carry me home. A band of angels coming after me. Coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot. Coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot. Coming for to carry me home. Because these songs may be an indication of pain inflicted upon a people unique to the Black African experience. That didn't absolve them from becoming humans, and they still had hope. We still wanted to aspire. We wanted our children to be free. We wanted to be liberated. We were aspirational. But we understood clearly that no law, be it the Emancipation Proclamation or the Civil War amendments, Amendment 13, which freed the slaves on paper, Amendment 14, which made them citizens on paper, and the 15th Amendment, which gave them the right to vote. Even with that being said, we understood clearly as a people that more struggle was on the horizon. And no greater example of that is from a speech from Frederick Douglass in 1857. The whole history of progress of human liberty shows that all concessions yet made of her august claims have been born of earnest struggle. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. You see there? That's not a dream. We understood clearly what was coming. But let me continue. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation are men and women who want crops without plowing the field. They want the rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its waters. This struggle may be a moral one. It may be a physical one. It may be both moral and physical, but it must be struggle. Because power concedes nothing without demand. One of my favorite groups during the Reconstruction era was the Fisk Jubilee singers. And they went on tour to raise money for freed blacks to go to college during 1871, even releasing an album to help support their works. They spread the word that education is the way. And what they so brilliantly did was they didn't run away from this legacy of pain. They embraced it and claimed it as their own by taking a very uniquely black style born of struggle in the field and turning it into official music that everyone to this day can enjoy. Every time I feel the spirit move in my heart, I will pray. Every time I feel the spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Up on the mountain when my Lord spoke, out of his mouth came fire and smoke. And all around me, it looked so fine. I asked my Lord if all was fine. Every time I feel the spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Every time I feel the spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Oh, I have sorrows and I have woe, and I have heartache here below. But while my God leads me, I never fear, for I am sheltered by his care. Every time I feel the spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Every time I feel the spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. This is important that we talk about the through line. Every era of the Black American experience has been fraught with struggle, the fight to dehumanize, to recategorize back to 3/5 of a person. But firmly believe that the human spirit, when oppressed, will always find a way to manifest. And you can find an example of this in song. We're on our way to heaven, we shall not be moved. We're on our way to heaven, we shall not be moved, just like a tree standing by the waterside. We shall not be moved. The Union is behind us, we shall not be moved. The Union is behind us, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree standing by the waterside, we shall not be moved. We're fighting for our freedom, we shall not be moved. We're fighting for our freedom, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the waterside, we shall not be moved. We're building a mighty union, we shall not be moved. We're building a mighty union, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the waterside, we shall not be moved. And as we fast forward through the timeline, through situations like Black Wall Street, Rosewood, discrimination that prevented the integration of the war, so soldiers couldn't fight together. Coming back home, discriminated, having to be dehumanized, can't even drink from the same water fountains, can't even ride the front of the bus. That struggle gets deeper, but the difference is ownership of our legacy started to take a firm hold on the Black American experience. This is our country. We honor our ancestors by continuing to fight for it. Because Paul and Silas bound in jail got no money for their bail. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Paul and Silas thought they were lost. The dungeon shook and the chains fell off. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on, yes. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep. As a young brother growing up in Brooklyn, in the height of drug violence, Crooklyn, USA, it was very difficult to want to celebrate anything based on the legacy of pain. And that's exactly why we celebrate. Because as a people, we always seem to find a way to keep our eyes on the prize and to keep moving forward. I became a firm believer in Juneteenth and celebration in 1989 because of a particular rap group that blew my mind. In the 70s, we had I'm Black and I'm Proud, JB. Well, my version of that was Fight the Power. Excerpt. As the rhythm designed to bounce, what counts is that the rhyme's designed to fill your mind. Now that you realize that the pride's arrived, we got the pump and stuff to make you jump from the heart. It's a start, a work of art to revolutionize, make a change, nothing strange. People, we are the same. No, we're not the same, because you don't know the game. What we need is awareness. We can't get careless. And you say, what is this? My beloved, let's get down to business, mental self-defense of fitness. Yo, bum rush the show. You gotta go for what you know to make everybody see in order to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power. Fight the power. We got to fight the powers that be. Elvis was a hero to most, but he never meant shit to me. He said straight up, race up that sucker was simple and plain. Motherfuck him and John Wayne. Cause I'm black and I'm proud. I'm ready cause I'm hyped and I'm amped. Most of my heroes don't appear on no stamp. Man. Sample or look back and you'll find that nothing but rednecks for 400 years if you check. Don't worry, be happy was the #1 jam. If you can say what I'm saying, you can slap me right here. But let's get this party started, right? We got to say power to the people with no delay to make everybody see that we got to fight the powers that be. We celebrate Juneteenth in the legacy, fighting the power. Fighting power. Fighting the power. Fighting the power. Fighting the power. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power. Fight the power. Fight the power. Fight the power.
Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water, said wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water, said wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water, said wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
The papers and placards say that I am to deliver a 4th of July oration. It is the birthday of your national independence and your political freedom. We have to do with the past only as we can make it useful to the present and to the future. Fellow citizens, I am not wanting to respect for the fathers of this republic. They were peacemen, but they preferred revolution to peaceful submission to bondage. With them, nothing was settled. That's not right. With them, justice, liberty, and humanity were final, not slavery and oppression. You may well cherish the memory of such men. Fellow citizens, pardon me, allow me to ask, why am I called upon you to speak here today? What have I or those I represent to do with your national independence? I am not included within the pale of this glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us, the rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers. is shared by you, not by me. The sunlight that brought life and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. This 4th of July, you may rejoice. I will mourn. Above your national joy, I hear the mournful wail of millions who claims heavy and grievous yesterday are today, rendered more immeasurable by the Jubilee shouts that reach them. My subject, then fellow citizens, is American slavery. What to a slave is 4th of July? A day that reveals the injustice and cruelty in which he is a constant victim. The feeling of this nation must be quickened with consciousness. The nation startled of the and crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and denounced. What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year the gross injustice, cruelty to which he is a constant victim to. Your celebration is a sham. Your boasted liberty, unholy license, your national greatness, swelling vanity. Your sounds of rejoicing and empty, heartless. Your denouncing of tyrants, brass, fronted impudence. Your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings. With all your religious pride and parade, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impudence, and hypocrisy. A thin veil to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than there are people of these United States at this very hour. The existence of slavery in this country brands your humanity as a base pestilence and your Christianity a lie. Americans, your Republican politics are fraudulently inconsistent. The existence of slavery in this country brands your republicanism as a sham, your humanity as a base pestilence. It corrupts your politicians at home. It snaps the foundation of religion. It makes your name a hissing and byword to a mocking earth. It is antagonistic force in your government. Oh, be warned, be warned. A horrible reptile is coiled up in your nation's bosom. The venomous creature is nursing at the tender breast of your youthful republic. For the love of God, tear away and flee from your hideous creature, and let the weight of 20 millions crush and destroy it forever. Allow me to say, in conclusion, notwithstanding the dark picture I have this day presented of the state of this nation, I do not despair for this country. No. There are forces in operation which may be inevitable work the downfall of slavery. The arm of the Lord is not shortened, and the doom of slavery is certain. I therefore leave off where I began with hope. God speed the day when human blood shall cease to flow, and every claim be understood. These claims of human brotherhood, and each return for evil good, not blow for blow, The day will come, all feuds end, and change unto a faithful friend, each foe. God speed the hour, the glorious hour, when none on earth shall exercise a loudly power, nor a tyrant's presence cower, but all to manhood's stature tower, by equal birth. Good day.
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free.
Hello? Habari mama. How are you? How is everyone? Nabuku? I'm okay. Things over here, things over here aren't like we dreamed they'd be. You sent me here to go to school, but you never told me what I'd learned was some watered down history. You didn't mention that all my teachers could tell me about racism in this country was some book about a bird. You didn't tell me that those statues in the park were of people who thought 3/5 of me was human. Or that getting a visa didn't mean I was welcomed. That I'd have to tone down my blackness if I wanted to make some friends. You didn't tell me the people I'm supposed to call for help might be the reason I end up needing it in the first place. I wish you told me my skin was a crime. Yes, my life does matter, but I don't need you to tell me. What I need you to do is understand. Understand why I'd risk my life to go and preach that in the streets. I need you to seek an education past this curated narrative you learn in school, and then go on and pass it down to your kids. I need you to appreciate me for what I am, regardless of if I rap or play for the Heat. Kanye said, yes, Kanye West, Kanye said that we at war with terrorism, we at war with racism, but most of all, we at war with ourselves. Yeezy told me that we at war, but he wasn't talking about one you could see on screen. The war Kanye referenced is in the mind, and it's one where black people in this country, you know, the ones that look like me, they're born on the front line. Brothers and sisters getting murdered in the street makes and the protests make their way into your conversation. No one seems to talk about the one in our head. That one. That one. That one blasts at your 9mm. Sorry, gotta take this. Hello? Yes, yes, no, this is totally a good time. No worries about the whole touching my hair thing. I was overreacting. Yeah, I can definitely cut it for the job you haven't officially offered me yet. It'd be my pleasure. Okay. No, you have it. Okay, bye. To be black and free in this country, you must first accept the forces around you have tried to colonize your mind. You gotta surround yourself with people that embrace your melanin, because there is nothing more beautiful than black joy. You gotta support the people around you that tear themselves down and aid them in the fight against their own thoughts. Like, are you seeing this? I'm supposed to be ashamed of this? I am my ancestors' wildest dreams, and yet I once felt ashamed to wear my kanzu outside. I blame the government. I blame other people. Most of all, though, I blame myself. I blame the fact that I let other opinions form my own thoughts for so long. I owe it to my people and my family to stand up and stand proud, because no, there is no such thing as me being too loud. 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, there were black people enslaved. For 2.5 years, those people fought every single day in the hopes they'd see that freedom one day. June 19th marked the end of that fight, but the beginning of this war. Human beings in a mob. What's a mob to a king? What's a king to a god? What's a god to a non-believer who don't believe in anything? Will he make it out alive? Alright, alright. No church in the wild. Human beings in a mob. But what's a mob to a king? What's a king to a god? But what's a god to a non-believer who don't believe in anything? Will he make it out alive? Alright, alright. No church in the wild.
I am before the American people today through no inclination of my own, but because of a deep-seated conviction that the country at large does not know the extent nor the conditions which force into exile those who speak the truth. Repeated attacks on life, liberty, and happiness of any citizen or class of citizens is an attack on the distinctive American institutions. The race problem, as it has been called, has been omnipresent and all-pervading, long before Afro-Americans were raised from the degradation of a slave to the dignity of a citizen. And so, 3 years ago, last June, I became editor and part owner of the Memphis Free Speech. As editor, I had occasion to criticize the city school board's employment of inefficient teachers and poor school buildings for black school children. I was the employee of the board at the time, and at the close of that school term 1 year ago was not re-elected to a position I had held in the city school district for 7 years. Accepting the decision of the board, I set out to make a newspaper, a race newspaper. To make the paper a paying business, I became advertising agent, solicitor, as well as editor, and was continually on the go. But there was a rude awakening. On the morning of March 9th, the bodies of 3 of our best young men were found in an old field, horribly shot to pieces. Boys of 14 years have been lynched by white representatives of the American civilization. In fact, for all kinds of offenses, and for no offenses, Men and women are put to death without judge and jury. The result is that many men have been put to death whose innocence was afterward established. And yet this Christian nation says it can do nothing to stop this inhuman slaughter. The general government is willingly powerless to protect the lives of its black citizens. But the state governments are free to use state troops to shoot them down like cattle, when in desperation, the black men attempt to defend themselves and then tell the world that it was necessary to put down the race war. Persons unfamiliar with the condition of affairs do not credit the truth when it is told to them. Is there a remedy? Is there a remedy, or will the nation confess that it cannot protect its protectors at home as well as abroad? Various remedies have been suggested, but year after year statistics are published, meetings are held, and yet the butchery of men and women continues despite plea and protest. Education is suggested as a preventative, and it is just as grave a crime to murder an ignorant man as it is a scholar. Agitation, though helpful, will not alone stop crime. Year after year, statistics are published, meetings are held, resolutions are adopted, and yet lynchings go on. The only certain remedy is an appeal to law. Lawbreakers must be made to know that human life is sacred and that every citizen of this country is first a citizen of the United States and secondly a citizen of the state to which he belongs. The strong arm of the government must reach across state lines whenever unbridled lawlessness defies state laws. They must give to the individual under the stars and stripes the same measure of protection it gives to him when he travels to foreign lands. When a demand goes up from fearless and persistent reformers, from press to pulpit, from industrial and moral associations, from Maine to Texas, and from ocean to ocean, a way will be made to make it so. The voice of the people is the voice of God. And I long with all intensity of my soul that exact justice be accorded to every citizen, whatever race, who finds a home within the borders of the land of the free and the home of the brave. No longer will our national hymn be sounding brass and tinkling cymbal, but every member of this great composite nation, my country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, freedom does ring. The words I just spoke are taken from speeches written between 1893 and 1909 by Ida B. Wells. Born to enslaved parents in 1862, Ida B. Wells was a teacher, newspaper owner, a journalist, activist, and anti-lynching crusader. This year, more than 100 years after the original speeches, Wells was awarded a Pulitzer Prize for her outstanding and courageous reporting on the horrific and vicious violence against African Americans during the era of lynching. Ida B. Wells died March 25, 1931. Her legacy lives on. Once again, in her own words, the way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them.
Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom's land. Ain't gonna let segregation turn me
June 19th, 2020, we celebrate Juneteenth. As this day starts to close, for those who know the tradition of a gathering, partying, hanging out, but most importantly, reflecting on the legacy shared by peoples, African Americans here in America. We claim this day, as all Americans should, in order to right the wrongs or to turn the light on, and make it a national holiday, hopefully by the time this year is over. We raise up our red soda water, or if you have flying all day today, the official Juneteenth flag. You're probably wondering what that looks like. You shouldn't be surprised. Red, white, and blue, with a star that is reminiscent of Texas, to mark that day where slavery officially ended and the struggle continued. At this time, I want to give a big shout out, of course, to Caffe Lena for allowing us to do this legacy, a work in progress rendition here at America's oldest coffee house. Also, big shout out, of course, to MLKSaratoga.org for doing such an amazing job in helping to host this program. My name is Garland Nelson, your Soulist, but I work in concert with my brothers and sisters on this stage, on and off the stage, or those who are outside the building because we have to socially distance. Either way, let's give a big shout out at home for Creative Action Unlimited, as well as the Black Theater Troupe of Upstate New York. If you feel so inclined, please, as artists, and we're all struggling during this time, if you feel so inclined, there's a virtual tip jar link right on the website, right on the YouTube link that you're watching. And as we get ready to leave, we hope that we did not just go off emotionally. We wanted you to feel us. Because to celebrate the legacy of Juneteenth, we got to keep it real. And I'd like to end with a poem titled Emancipation, published somewhere around 1925 by poet Paul Laurence Dunbar. Flying out your banners, your honors be ringing. Raise to the ether your paeans of praise. Strike every chord and let music be ringing. Celebrate freely this day of all days. Few are the years since that notable blessing raised you from slaves to the powers of men. Each year has seen you, my brothers, progressing, never to sink to that level again. Perched on your shoulders sit liberty smiling. Perch while your eyes of the nations can see. Keep from their opinions all contact defiling. Show by your deeds what you're destined to be. Press boldly forward, nor waver nor falter. Blood has been freely poured out in your cause. Lives sacrificed upon liberty's altar. Press to the front, it was craven to pause. Look to the heights that are worth your attaining. Keep your feet firm in the path of your goal. Towards noble deeds, every effort be straining. Worthy ambition is food for your soul. Up, men and brothers, women and sisters, be noble, be earnest. Ripe is the time and success is assured. Know that your fate was the hardest and sternest when through those last ringing days you've endured. Never again shall the manacles gale you. Never again shall the whip stroke defame you. Nobles and free men, your destinies call you onward to honor, to glory, to fame. Ladies and gentlemen, happy Juneteenth to you and your families. Celebrate a truly American tradition. Thank you and good night.